by the taxpayers. Let me repeat that. No losses will be borne by the taxpayers. Instead, the money will come from the fees that banks pay into the Deposit Insurance Fund. Because of the actions that our regulators have already taken, every American should feel confident that their deposits will be there if and when they need them. Second, the management of these banks will be fired. If the bank is taken over by FDIC, the people running the bank should not work there anymore. Third, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe.
This is my first video update from Athens, Greece on a very windy and very cold Monday morning. Let's talk about bank bailouts in the US. And that is what we got yesterday. We got two bank bailouts. SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, was one, and a second bank was bailed out, and that is Signature Bank in New York. But this is not a regional bank. This is actually quite a big bank. It's a top 40 bank, and it has something like 170 billion in assets. And this bank had trouble, and it was also included in this bailout that was announced on a Sunday, which shows the level of panic that took hold yesterday in the Biden White House, because they made the decision to bail out SVB and Signature Bank on a Sunday. And they're being very careful to not call this a bailout, but it is a bailout. This is a bailout of the venture capital community. It's a bailout of tech companies, of tech startups, of the people that are employed at these tech startups. It is a bailout. The Biden White House doesn't want us to call it that, but that is what it is. And I understand that if you had shares in Silicon Valley, shareholders and stuff like that in Silicon Valley Bank, they're screwed. But the deposits are now going to be under the protection of the Fed, of the U.S. government. They're made whole. And I believe today, on Monday, all depositors in SVB and in Signature Bank will have access to their deposits, the full amount, not the $250,000, but the full amount. So that is the big news. The FDIC is, I guess now they're backstopping the entire banking system, if I understand this correctly. That is what's happening. So a third bank is on the radar now, First Republic. And that is a bank that I think it's located in San Francisco. And it is a bank of the very high net worth individuals. That's where they have their money deposited, First Republic. And that bank has now come on the radar. Though I believe they got some cash from JP Morgan. But these high net worth individuals, they got spooked, and from what I understand, they started to pull out their money. So that is what is happening. And I think the Fed, Janet Yellen, she announced that because the banks were putting their money in treasuries, that they're now backstopping the treasuries that the banks were invested in, which to me is pretty incredible when you think about it, because I mean, you're talking about U.S. treasuries, but those treasuries, well, because of the hike in the interest rates, they're not doing so well. And the interest rates are going up because the Biden White House is trying to deal with inflation. And why do you have inflation? Well, lockdowns and sanctions against Russia. So what's the one thing, the money that you poured into the economy from the lockdowns, that's over, that's done. But what's the one thing that the Biden White House could do that could start to, it's not going to fix everything, but it could be a start. Let's just say it could be a start to getting things under control. Well, they could roll back the sanctions, couldn't they, against Russia? That could be one thing that could start to ease up on the rising inflation. Or maybe it's too late. I don't know. I'm looking at a Wall Street Journal article which says SVB Signature Bank depositors to get all their money as Fed moves to stem the crisis. The U.S. regulators took control of a second bank Sunday and announced emergency measures to ease fears depositors might pull their money from smaller lenders after the swift collapse late last week of Silicon Valley Bank. The measures, which include guaranteeing all deposits of SVB, were designed to shore up wavering confidence in the banking system. They were jointly announced on a Sunday night by the Treasury Department, the Federal Reserve, and the FDIC. Regulators announced they had taken control of Signature Bank, one of the main banks for cryptocurrency companies, on Sunday. The New York bank's depositors will be made whole, officials said. So you have, in the last year, you have, let's see, let's count it down. Celsius, Voyager, Silvergate, what else? Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and now we may be looking at First Republic. So I don't want to spook anybody, but it's a possibility. So those are the banking meltdowns. Oh, FTX. How could I forget? Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX. What happened to FTX, by the way? What exactly happened with that narrative? Anyway, a Treasury official said the steps didn't constitute a bailout because stock and bond holders in SVB and Signature wouldn't be protected. The Fed and Treasury separately said they would use emergency lending authorities to make more funds available to meet demands for bank withdrawals and additional effort to prevent a run on banks. Officials took the extraordinary step of designating SVB and Signature banks as a systemic risk to the financial system, which gives regulators flexibility to guarantee uninsured deposits. Officials said that depositors in SVB will have access to their money on Monday. So today they're going to be able to pull out their funds. Boy, the VCs, the venture capital community, they really should be thanking Janet Yellen and the Biden White House for this one. The government's bank deposit insurance fund, which covers all deposits at the two banks, will cover all deposits at the two banks rather than the standard $250,000. Federal regulators said any losses to the government's funds would be recovered in a special assessment on banks and that the U.S. taxpayers wouldn't bear any losses. You hear that, U.S. taxpayers? Janet Yellen is saying that inflation is transitory and that this is not going to be of concern to U.S. taxpayers. I sense some big-time money printing coming, right? Big-time money printing. That's what I sense. The central bank said it would make additional funding available to banks through a new bank term funding program, which will offer loans of up to 1 year to banks that pledge U.S. Treasury securities, mortgage-backed securities, and other collateral, up to $25 billion from the Treasury's Exchange Stabilization Fund will backstop the Fed lending program. This is what I'm saying. It's like they're They're backstopping the fact that banks are invested in treasuries, which I thought is the sensible thing for banks to do with money that's deposited. I mean, boy, I don't. Maybe I'm getting this wrong. Let's see. Let's read a little bit more of this Wall Street Journal article. Many of those securities have fallen in value as the Fed has raised interest rates. Treasuries, that's what they're talking about. Treasuries have lost value as the Fed has raised interest rates. The terms would allow banks to borrow at 100 cents on the dollar for securities trading potentially well below that value, potentially putting the government at risk of losses incurred by banks. Critics said the move would essentially offer a backdoor subsidy to bank investors and management for failing to properly manage interest rate risks. Then the Wall Street Journal says, way down in the article, another lender, First Republic Bank, said Sunday it had shored up its finances with additional funding from the Fed, and I believe JP Morgan gave them money. What else? Soothing nerves about access to uninsured bank deposits allows the Fed to stay more tightly focused on combating inflation by raising interest rates. Before the failure of SVB last week, officials had signaled they were on track to raise rates by at least a quarter percentage point, as they did last month at their next meeting, March 21, March 22. At the same time, heavy-handed federal interventions could amount to an embarrassing coda for a rollback of post-financial crisis regulations on small and mid-sized banks undertaken in recent years. Officials on Sunday signaled they would likely weigh tougher capital requirement and liquidity rules, reversing at least some of the steps taken during the Trump administration to ease restrictions on smaller banks. All right. I'll put a link to this Wall Street Journal article. I'll put a link to the archived version of this Wall Street Journal article. Rollback sanctions. Start getting inflation down, or at least start getting inflation to a point where it's not, where it doesn't continue to rise. I don't know. I mean, you know, this is the one political decision that the Biden White House could make to start to get things under some sort of control, or under some sort of manageable control, but they won't be able to do that, will they? So I think that SVB, they have branches in the UK. I believe they have branches in Canada and Sweden and, if I'm not mistaken, Germany, maybe Israel, I don't know. I know the UK, Canada, and Sweden for sure. So we're going to start to see, in the next week, we're going to start to see all of this unravel. I think that HSBC has already said that they're going to buy up SVB, the SVB branch in the UK, or something like that. Anyway, is there any other news that I need to talk about? Heavy fighting is going on in the Bakhmut center. That's developing as well, and allegedly this week we should be getting some sort of Ukraine counteroffensive to break open this cauldron. Though, from what I understand, things are muddy and the conditions are not optimal for a Ukraine offensive towards Bakhmut, but let's see. Let's wait and see what happens there. This weekend there were protests in the Netherlands as well. The Dutch farmer protests, which, from what I understand, continue to go on. And so you had big protests in the Netherlands, and the Georgian government, well, the current government, Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili, he said that that Elensky and his counterparts in Kiev are motivating these regime change protests. Quote, when a person who is at war finds time and responds to a destructive action held here by several thousand people, this is direct proof that he is involved. He is motivated to make something happen here too, to change. This is what the Prime Minister said on air to the IMEDI TV channel. He advised Ukrainian authorities to take care of their country first. Yeah, Elensky is absolutely meddling in Georgia because he's gotten the order to encourage the protesters so that they can get some sort of regime change and get some sort of a second front going in Georgia. Rishi Sunak, what is going on with Rishi Sunak? Is this my clown world? Let's make this my clown world. Rishi Sunak upgrades his private pool heating amid an energy crisis. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has upgraded a local electricity network just to power a large heated swimming pool at his private country home. The Guardian reported on Sunday the move comes as dozens of public pools in the UK are closing down due to skyrocketing energy bills. According to The Guardian, engineers installed a substantial amount of equipment and a new connection that runs across open fields to join the Prime Minister's manor in North Yorkshire, Northern England, to the national grid. It was said that Sunak will pay for the upgrade from his own pocket, with costs estimated at tens of thousands of pounds. Yep. Rishi Sunak upgrading that pool, upgrading the heating of that pool. I think he announced that he's increasing the defense budget of the UK, defense spending for the UK military. That's one sector that's doing really well, the military-industrial complex. They're doing really well this week. What's the first trip that Xi Jinping is going to be taking after his election after him winning a third term as the president of China? He will be heading to Moscow. That's going to be his first trip. This is confirmed by Reuters. The Chinese president plans to visit Moscow next week. The budget of Ukraine for 2023 provides for a record deficit of $38 billion. President Elensky expressed hopes that the West would help Kiev cover the budget deficit. Yeah, no problem. Yellen's going to be printing all kinds of money, so she might as well print an extra $38 billion to cover Ukraine's budget needs. Why not? Since she's going to have those printers running over time, might as well print out another $38 billion for Elensky. I think that's it. I think I'm going to wrap up this video. I'll leave it there. Is it true that Mexico applied to join the BRICS? Is that confirmed? I don't know. I think it is confirmed, but I'm just not 100% sure on that. And is it true that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, that they had millions in Silicon Valley Bank? Is that true? They say the couple set up accounts following the advice of friends in Silicon Valley. Well, if they did have millions as depositors, they don't have to worry. They're going to get that money back today, if that is the case. All right, I will end the video there. I'll make this video a short one. I don't think I have any other big news topics to discuss on this Monday morning. The Silicon Valley Bank is the big one. Fighting continues in the center of Bakhmut. The money printers are going to be turned on in a big, big way, and Elensky needs another 38 billion. Arestovich. What's going on with Arestovich? From what I understand, he put out a video the other day. He says the West deceived Russia. They turned Ukraine into a huge anti-Russian country. Russians need to defend themselves. If I were in the place of the Russians, I would do exactly the same. I don't know if this is a recent video. I think this is a recent video. I imagine Arestovich is somewhere in Italy, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, he's looking to make amends with Russia. I guess that's his exit. I think the Italian Defense Ministry, they said that they haven't heard of any type of NATO boots on the ground in Ukraine because of the statement that Viktor Orban gave last week, where he's worried that NATO is inching closer to boots on the ground in Ukraine. Italian officials said that they haven't heard of any such talk from NATO, so who knows? The Ukraine Foreign Minister Kaluba, he gave an interview the other day, and he poured cold water on the F-16 story. He said that's not happening. There are going to be no F-16s. MiGs, perhaps, but F-16s, no chance. Anyway, I will leave it there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble and Rockfin and Telegram and ODYSEE and BitChute. And that's my channel, Alexander's channel, the Duran's channel. We're on all those platforms. And go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. This is my Slovakia sweatshirt. I think there are protests in Slovakia over the weekend as well. And the building in the protests that took place in Prague, where they wanted to take down the Ukraine flag, that was the National Museum, a very important building in the center of Prague, and that's where they have a Ukraine flag flying. I don't understand why they have a Ukraine flag flying in the National Museum, but there it is. All right, that's the video, everyone. Take care.